Hi, Tyler from Interfidelity here. Having just finished CanJam SoCal 2018 and being close enough by, I decided to come visit Dan Clark in his factory. Hi, Dan.
Good morning.
And we're going to do a little tour. And we can start the tour with your new headphones. Why don't you flash those new headphones over here?
Yep. This is Voce.
Voce, your new electrostatic headphones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tell us a little about them.
Okay. Voce is a ground-up effort from us. We've been working on it for 3.5 years or so.
Yeah.
We're about 1.5 years later than I thought we'd be to market, but better to do it right.
Right.
A couple of things about it. It typically, as you can see, it uses the same nickel titanium headband that we use for our regular products, which is, as you've seen, ultralight and pretty much indestructible. But beyond that, it's a all-machined aluminum housing, very large driver, 88 millimeters with 2.4 micron material, fully dust shielded, so that it has no issues with dust permeation or humidity in Southeast Asia, for example. So it should be nice and stable in any climate. It works with Stax Pro compatible equipment, so anything that will drive a Stax 7 or a Stax 9, of course, will work fine with it. And has a couple of neat things besides just having a really large driver. A couple of things that the large driver does do, and you can confirm if you heard the same thing, but it gives you very flat bass down to about 6 hertz. It also gives you a very large sound stage. It's a very spacious sounding headphone, and it moves the sound somewhat forward, so it's a little less to your sides and forward and a little more in front of you, which we worked on to try and give it more of a feel of walking into a room.
Right.
Beyond the sonics of it, we tried to just give it a really nice even tone, very detailed and revealing like you'd expect from electrostats, but with a warmer and perhaps more extended and powerful bass than you would be expecting.
Right.
We've tried to weight reduce it like crazy. I think it's 320 grams in production.
Yeah, it's very light on my head, yeah.
It's got a very nice light weight. It's got a very good even distribution of weight, so you feel it, with the headband here. It's designed to be breathable and comfortable, also minimize weight. We also took some real care with the cable on it. The cable's got a couple of really unique features. One of them is that the body of the pin housing is actually solid machined Teflon with solid machined OFC pins with a really nice quality gold plate on it in a machined aluminum housing. Beyond that, we worked very hard on the cable to give it a very relaxed drape and make it a round cable. It's still very low capacitance, but it's very much more ergonomic, at least to my thinking, than the traditional ribbon cables. And so while it's a tiny bit higher in capacitance than a ribbon, you've not lost much in that regard, but you've gained a ton in ergonomics. It doesn't tangle around your chair, it doesn't get kinked, it's not heavy. It's also got almost no self-noise, so basically it'll never conduct noise from your
mechanically transmitted noise, yeah. What people call microphonics, but that's not really a word to be used there. But
or self-noise.
Yeah.
The other thing is that it's a detachable cable. The user can replace the cable. A lot of electrostats, the headphone has to go back to the factory if the cable ever is being replaced, if you want to lengthen it, or if the cable's failed. And of course, as we know, usually the first thing to go in a headphone is the cable. So that's, I think, an important field service thing for customers, and it just goes on with 2 screws per side.
Yeah. Well, I did spend about 5 or 10 minutes listening, and the bass really is quite nice. The texture remains, and it's very nicely resolving. But the thing that really struck me was that the treble, where I usually have problems with electrostatics, is that the treble is either hazy or zingy or something like that. There's just extra, and the Voce sounds almost damped, or at least critically damped. Why is that?
That actually was a specific design goal that I had. I appreciate that there are people who really love the treble of different electrostats that are out there. It never really worked for me because it wasn't how I heard live music.
Right.
And so I wanted to see if I could make one that sounded a little more like what I expected. And I've spent a lot of time listening to drums and percussions unamplified, you know, from friends who play drums and stuff. And I tried to, I worked very extensively on the voicing of the headphone to get snare drums and cymbals in particular to sound correct to my ear.
Right. Well, it does. It sounds quite good.
Thank you.
And you've done something else that you do a lot of, and I've always appreciated, because I like it when enthusiasts can play with their stuff. And you've made damping inserts for the Electrostatic. Could you show us one of those?
Sure. I think they're a little. These ones have been to a few too many trade shows on my backpack, so they shouldn't look like this janky. But we actually have 3 different damping materials that come with it. This is the one that I think gets the most ear time for me, and it's a very thin white acoustic filter with a little foam ring around it, and you just tuck them in the ear pads from the inside, so it's, you know, it's trivial to put in.
Right. Much like with many of your headphones, except this material is quite a bit thinner.
That's right. This basically has. I'm not really sure if there's a technical term for it. I've always just called. It's kind of my own expression for it, but it's a low entropy material. It doesn't tend to rob it of resolution. It's simply more like putting a resistor in the circuit that's a frequency dependent resistor, and it will drop certain frequencies by a little bit without actually deleting detail. The other materials we use, we have a black acoustic foam, which is actually a similar damping material. It's the same damping material we've used on many of our headphones, which gives a slightly different experience. It's less damped than that. And then we have a heavier black felt, and I actually find that interesting to use. You know, I wouldn't use it for like quality recordings, but if I've got some old metal recordings, or, you know, I'm listening to some grungy rock from the 70s, and, you know, there's
1975 DDD or whatever.
Yeah,
it was later than that, but
even Led Zeppelin. You know, it's like by today's standards, the mixing is very different.
Yeah,
you know, and they had a lot more emphasis on some of the highs, and it isn't particularly pleasant sometimes on Electrostats. Similar like Cocteau Twins. You know, I love their music, but the production.
Yeah.
And so I drop in one of those black inserts, and that will soften up, and it will that one has a little insertion loss, and it's deliberately designed to be for like material where it needs it.
Right. Well, I thank you for continuing to think of people who have slightly different requirements. I have to say that in this case, I almost always use a filter on one of Dan's MrSpeaker headphones. I almost always use the filter that has the least transmission loss. I almost always like one filter in, but in this case I didn't. In this case I thought, and it usually boils down to me wanting to listen to better controlled treble, and in this case the treble is so nice and tidy already. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that was, you know, I'm really happy to hear that, because that was my major. I had 2 major design goals. You know, that one was to get the bass to be like truly reach, and the other was to go high.
Yeah.
With a little less, or a little more dark space between the notes is probably how I define it. The other thing that I really enjoy about the headphone is the soundstage. You know, I actually, back in the day when I was first designing headphones, I learned this from you, which is you talked about how you kind of go like this and reach for certain instruments, and while it's not scientific, it gives you a sense for where the soundstage is. And I extended that to maybe focus a little more on where like the edge of the hall is in a good acoustic recording. And what I loved about these is sometimes on a really good recording in a really quiet room, I don't feel like there's a boundary I can reach for. And that, you know, to me that's when I really feel like I've just slipped into the performance, and you know, I'm no longer experiencing a headphone, I'm experiencing the performance.
I guess I wasn't paying too much attention to imaging when I mostly look for tonality right off the bat. I'll have to spend a little more time a little bit later and have another listen. Why don't we go take a look and see how these are made, and and your factory.
All right.
Off we go.
All right. This is our general production area. We do all the assembly of headphones here except for the Voce line. And each one of our workstations is set up with pretty much all the tools we need. This one's prepped right now. We've just received a bunch of Aeon drivers, and these are getting set up for fabrication. We try to make sure that, I mean, this is just an ergonomic thing, but we really tried to create a production environment that was pleasant. And so in fact, this is a converted office space, and it was neat. Rather than doing a warehouse and, you know, some grimy, noisy, loud, huge space, we kind of created a work cell basis. And so typically what happens is one of our technicians will build each headphone from the, you know, mostly from its entirety until the headband is assembled. And it's all done in one work pod like this. So each pod's kind of configured for the tools and equipment that's needed.
And there are, you know, 4 little pods in this room where people are working on various things.
That's right. So we have four spaces for production. And so, for example, Austin here is working on doing driver assembly for the Aeons, and he's doing just some validation and making sure that we don't have any buzzes or crinkles or other things that would disrupt the product.
Cool. All right.
So here we have our burn-in room, and after the drivers are assembled, we put them all in here and rack them up, where they burn in for a minimum of 48 hours. The burn-in ensures that when we take them to the next phase in the process, which is driver matching, that they are able to be correctly matched, and that once the headphones are not in use, the drivers won't drift a little bit.
And how long are they burned in for?
A solid 48 hours.
And what type of sounds are playing on the headphones when you do it?
We have a set of test patterns we've generated that are designed specifically to burn in the driver.
To exercise your drivers.
That's right. It gets about probably 80% of the burn-in done, and after that we find that matching holds and the drivers won't drift, and you know the changes after that are kind of the minor ones that people say, where the highs will smooth, the bass will get a little more dynamic and tighter. Those are sonic things, but they don't tend to excuse me, they have no effect on the matching. So it gets burned in first, and then and then it goes to the matching. That's correct.
Which we'll see here in just a second. Okay, cool.
After drivers have been fabricated, we bring them in here, which is the matching room, and so we archive and store all the drivers. They're run through a driver matching system that allows us to match the drivers to within, typically for the Aeon and Ethers, less than 1/2 a dB through the frequency spectrum. The Voces, we match even tighter than that. And what happens is, if a driver doesn't find its match, it stays in here for a while until it ages out, at which point we rebuild the driver, assuming we won't find a pairing.
So all these little drawers over here are filled with drivers waiting for a mate.
That's right.
Yeah, well, not all the drawers, obviously, but some of the drawers are filled with.
They empty out as we go, and,
right?
You know, but the driver matching software keeps track of it, and so we have, you know, it keeps a historical database, and when we find a driver that's been stashed away, it'll say, and you know, this drawer will find it, and that allows us to keep our yields very high, but get very precise driver matches across lots.
Cool. And you said before that this is a Klippel system that is doing it. So there's a fixture for the headphone to mount in, and then this system will measure the headphone, and
that's right. It tests a ton of different parameters. It looks for rubbing, buzzing, pops, ticks, distortion, transient response, phase, and of course frequency domain matching.
Right. Cool.
And then after that gets done, the ears gives the final listening test.
Cool. And he also is there's a fixture here. Is it the same Klippel system, or
no? At here we're not using Klippel. We just have a different. What we're just doing here, we're checking for variation against the expected response curve.
Cool. Okay. Where do we go now, Dan?
All right. From here, we go down to talk about probably electrostat production in our new clean room.
All right.
So this is our new clean room. This is where we build Voces, and you can take a look in here from this window here before we go inside. But you can see that we have, in addition to having filtration for the rooms, we have clean stations where we work. One's for driver prep and the other's for actual assembly. And the key thing is we actually tried to build a Class 4 clean room, and it turns out we ended up building a Class 1 clean room. So as a a DIY clean room project. It was very successful, and we typically measure 0 particulates below 3.3 microns even on the workstations.
Cool.
So they're super clean, and that's really essential because that lets us reduce the chance of having pops, ticks, and other artifacts in the Voces when they ship.
Cool. There's the Voce sign. Obviously, this is where it goes.
All right, so we'll go in here and we'll robe up.
There you go. I just had my feet departiculated.
Tiles discovering the boot cleaner. So here we are in the robing area of the clean room. This is where you kind of just get your shoes cleaned on the sticky mat, which Tile discovered. Suit up, and then we come into the real clean room area. And in here we typically are measuring, let's see, where's our particulate meter? But if we go in here and we measure the air on the clean space, this is what's called a laminar flow hood, and it blows clean air across the operator's workstation.
Right, so there's the laminar flow means there's no turbulence. It comes down kind of in a column straight down and flows out.
That's right. It's not actually running at the moment. I'll turn it on, and when it's running, it blows a uniform layer of air across the whole surface. And that way, for example, if the operator has a little bit of, the operator is wearing gloves when he's working in this area, but say a little bit of skin falls off or flakes off between here and the glove, it'll blow across the station and keep the workspace clean.
Right.
So generally, we measure 0 particulates on the actual workspace, and then within the room, it's typically what's called an ISO Class 2 compliant room. And it probably won't work right now because I just turned it on, but count the particles in the workspace here, and takes a moment for it to actually go through its count.
So if I blow into that thing, what will it tell me?
That depends on how much of a dirty old man you are, yes.
It probably gets sawdust out of me one way or another.
Yeah. Axle grease, whatever you've been working on today. Yeah.
Sawdust. Sawdust definitely making my camper.
Yeah, so here you're seeing it's showing 000 on the particulates.
Cool. A nice, clean place to build electrostatic headphones.
And if you look at the way the room works, the inlet for the air filtration for the room is a holes down here, and then it loops around to a big HEPA filter that's in the ceiling tiles up there. All the ceiling tiles have been built to clean room standards, so they're dust-free tiles that have all been gasketed and sealed in place, so the room's pretty much airtight.
Right.
We don't worry so much about the entry level through the robing area, because even in there it's meeting an ISO Class 3 standard, and we don't do the production work in there.
Right. Okay, and then can we look at some of the in-production Voces?
So these are our shims for the Voce stators. It's a nice gold-plated material, 0.58 millimeters thick, so that's the stator gap. And as we work on these, we apply a very high-quality, strong 3M adhesive to them, and that's what holds the drivers in place and tensioned. These are just some of the different components. This is the this is the frame that holds the diaphragm stator in place. These are nicely machined parts. They're very, very precise. All the parts that are made in this headphone are built to at least a 0.0001 inch tolerance. Because there are so many components in this, and if you're off by a tiny bit, the thing just doesn't perform properly. It'll stick, it'll have other issues. So we're very, very concerned with tolerances in this. It's a very difficult headphone to make parts for.
I just love 3M. The solar panels on top of my camper are held on by adhesives.
This is the stuff that they use on the side of architectural installations, like VHB, the big concert hall in Los Angeles with the aluminum panels or stainless panels stuck on the side. They use this to hold those onto buildings to last for 40 years.
I've heard that aircraft companies, many of the parts of an airplanes are now used by adhesives, and at one point they were actually putting rivet marks or what looked like rivets on the plane because people were worried, hey, there's no rivets on this plane. But and also all the racks on top of cars are just adhesively attached for the most part. It's just amazing. It was something like, and there's many flavors of this VHB, very high bond tape. And the one that I used had something like 180 pounds per square inch pull strength.
Right. Yeah, this stuff's insane.
Yeah. So it's just
it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And when we tension our drivers, it's in an unbelievable amount of tension. You know, it's literally as much as we can do. It's quite a process to tension the drivers. And then we also take some steps to make sure that the tension stays stable over time.
Cool. Well, let's see what's next.
All right, and that's Cormac who's working on.
All right, hiya.
Assembling some of the Electrostatic parts right now.
All right, we'll see what's next.
This is our paint shop. We do all our finished work for carbon fiber in here, as well as painting the ether flow parts and doing some of the stator preparation work for the electrostats. We have a large industrial spray booth. These are fixtures for some of our AON carbon inserts so that they get, this is where they get painted to give them that beautiful gloss finish.
And of course this place has that wonderful sort of juicy fruit gum smell that you really don't want to hang around in for too long.
Yeah, that's we for safety standards, when we're not painting in here, you know, they normally have masks on.
Oh yeah, well yeah, but cool. All right, paint shop.
So after the drivers have been matched, they go to final assembly. They're all racked up with the headbands on them, and then they come in here to Joey for final inspection. He's getting some Voce packaging ready to go out the door today. After the final inspection happens, then we pack them and ship them.
So, and this is why this door says eyes.
Yep.
And the one to matching is ears.
Yep.
So, and oh, that's your office.
And yes.
Yeah, brains, but the Z is backward.
You think? That pretty much reflects the state of the brains.
Sums it up, huh? All right. Well, what a lovely. Well, that's cool. Well, I'm gonna shoot that.
And this is the shop where we do our CNC work. We have a small 5-axis CNC machine here, and we use that for doing prototyping and making little test parts.
So this is a little tinkerer's area where you can play around with prototypes and all sorts of stuff. Boy, what fun you could have with one of those in your garage, huh?
Yeah, it's a great, you know, and this was nice because obviously we're working in an office environment here and it doesn't have big freight elevators and stuff. So this was literally the largest CNC we could get in the building that we could fit through the doors without knocking doors out and that we thought wouldn't fall through the floor. But it's a very high accuracy machine. It allows us to make all of our prototype parts to within a thousandth of an inch tolerance, which is what we really care about. Making, you know, complicated shapes like this is something that we're able to do in-house as part of our development process now.
Right. Cool. All right.
Last.
Where are we now, Dan?
Well, this is obviously the laser shop, and we do a ton of fabrication of laser parts in here. We make a lot of our own internal components here, where we have much higher precision than die stamping or die cutting can use.
Well, 15 minutes ago, this was a flat sheet of rubbery plastic stuff, or whatever it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
cool.
we cut our felts, our foams, all of our stuff that's precision cuts done here on this machine.
So that's the dead animal skins. Do you cut leather in here?
Kyle's a very talented leather worker also.
Oh, really?
You know, so like for those who have seen the leather holsters that I wear, Kyle made those.
Oh, did he really?
Couple little
samples here.
Yeah. Nice. That's
All these are cut and sewn, just like Dan's holsters.
You get to be precision and particular and not very creative with this bit, and then you get to be creative with that bit over there. That's cool. And look at that. Here's a big pile of these
gaskets.
Gaskets for which headphone is
Those
this?
are for AON.
Cool.
So,
Boy, all sorts of tools and cool stuff. And I've noticed a number of these signs. You make those on here as well?
Yep. Fun, but just random
Fun with
things
lasers.
to do with lasers. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So we have, We have, also a vinyl cutter and plotter, which we use for cutting the signs for the different rooms. And,
Yeah.
we try to do as much as we can in-house. We found that it just gives us better control of the process. Too many things that were outsourced were difficult to schedule. Their tolerances weren't as exacting as we needed.
Right.
The people who did the work wanted just absurd amounts of money because we're not buying 4 million of something.
Right.
And so we found it easier to make a lot of these damping materials and things like that ourselves on the laser.
We used to, at Headroom, we used to make our own rubber bezels around the bezel, and it was a horribly labor-intensive process. Maybe even a mistake, but we could make any shaped piece of rubber we wanted to. It was pretty cool.
It's really nice being able to make your own stuff in-house, especially the prototyping. Once we invested in and got the CNC in here, that really sped up our development process a lot.
All right, cool.
And the last step in the process is shipping. After things have gone through matching and final assembly, and Joey's given them their pass criteria, they're moved over here for final packing.
All right.
These are Voces, which are going to get ready to go. These need more space to pack, so we're actually going to be building these out in the production area because the boxes are fairly sizable.
Wow. That's pretty cool. That's a lot of Voces.
That's a lot of Voces. We'll be
Excellent.
shipping at least 20 over the next 2 days, and we'll be shipping at least that many more this week.
Cool.
We can now make up to 7 or 8 Voces a day.
Wow. And a bunch of ethers.
Yep.
Cool.
Ethers all went, for a little while, ether sales slowed down, and then they just took off again in January, and we were actually in a back order on ethers all of a sudden. So
Cool. All right.
It's been a busy quarter.
Let's go back to your office and say goodbye to everybody.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. What a place.
Thank you.
It's taken you a long time to get to this big a place and this much stuff. And
We are 6 years old now.
6? Only 6?
April Fool's Day was our 6th anniversary.
Really? April Fool's Day was your anniversary. That's excellent.
Yeah.
And when you started building the original headphones, modified T50,
Yep.
Fostex T50 RPs, where did you start? Was it literally in your garage, or?
No, I hadn't even gotten big enough to use the garage. It was it was my shared office with my wife, and it actually was my whole business model was to start the company by doing mods and use that revenue to fund development of our own products. And my cocktail napkin business plan was to hopefully ship within 3 years what became Ether. Though the original sketches I did for Ether looked a lot like Aeon.
With that,
The teardrop shape.
yeah, the Spock or whatever, the very unusual shape that has grown on me over time. I really,
The Vulcan cups.
Yeah, I like them quite a bit.
I like it. It's nice when you wear it because it doesn't occlude the face.
Yeah.
It keeps the headphone back. It's not really in your peripheral vision. It's
Yeah.
it's an ergonomically friendly design. But we actually shipped Ether on the 3rd anniversary of the company.
Really?
And so we've been shipping our own headphones for 3 years now, and amazingly the cocktail napkin idea of fund your own headphone development with the modifications worked.
So there you go. If you have a vision and you work hard at it, and maybe fill your world with hope and joy and love and goodness and truth and beauty, and work real hard, maybe the universe will smile on you, and
with a lot of luck.
and luck.
A lot of luck, good timing.
Blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah, you make it.
Yeah, and it's really fun, and I'm really happy that we're shipping the Electrostat now. That was a product when I started the company I never thought we'd be doing, and it just sort of popped into our heads one day, which was to start the project and see, because I'd been enjoying some Electrostats and thinking I love the resolution. It's not the sound that's for me, but maybe I could try and marry the resolution with a sound that's a little more to what I like and see what happens. And it kind of started off on a good footing, and we got good feedback from the community, and people told us when we were making mistakes, and you know, hopefully we listened well enough that we didn't make any major mistakes.
Yeah, we'll see.
You know, I feel like the headphone's great, and it, you know, to be making an electrostatic now, I feel like really put us on a, you know, another level.
Sure.
Having to build clean rooms and stuff was an interesting project in and of itself too.
So that's it. You've done it. It's you've absolutely done it, and you're finished, and it's over, right? There's nothing new coming down the pipe. No
it.
new
We're
ideas.
done. Nothing else.
No new ideas coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
Well, there are, but he'd have to kill me if I said anything. So. Best of luck on all those unmentionable good ideas.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming by, and you know, thanks for sharing the space. I hope people find it interesting, and thanks to everybody for their support.
All right. Okay, folks, we'll see you next time.